Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories this hour. Around 30 world leaders meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to discuss security guarantees if a ceasefire with Russia is reached. The coalition of the willing includes European nations, Turkey, Australia and Canada as they seek to win US support. Hamas says it is ready for a comprehensive deal to free all Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, shortly after President Trump demands the release of 20 captives. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejects the offer as, quote, empty spin and repeats that the Gaza war will only end with Hamas disarmed, the Strip demilitarized and Israel control. Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will hold in-depth talks on bilateral ties and strategic issues, Beijing has announced. China says the meeting will be of significant importance as both sides pledge closer cooperation and stronger socialist partnership. China defends its decision to invite Russia and North Korea to World War II commemorations in Beijing after President Trump accuses them of conspiring against the United States. Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun insists China diplomacy is never directed against any third party. Rescuers in Afghanistan struggle to pull bodies from rubble after powerful earthquakes leave more than 1,400 dead and tens of thousands displaced. Aid agencies warn funding cuts and Taliban policies are making it harder to deliver food, shelter and medical care. The Trump administration asks the US Supreme Court to fast-track its appeal after a lower court rules against the president's tariffs. Solicitor General John Sauer warns delay is damaging trade talks and urges oral arguments by November. Portugal is in shock after 16 people die and 18 are injured when Lisbon's 140-year-old Gloria funicular derails, a major tourist attraction in the capital. Officials declare a day of national mourning as the mayor calls it a tragic moment for the city. The Israeli military says Houthi rebels fire 3 missiles from Yemen in 24 hours, 2 intercepted and 1 landing outside Israel without any injuries. Defense Minister Israel Katz warns of a response of biblical proportions, declaring Israel will complete all 10 plagues. Now we start this hour in Europe, where NATO chief Mark Rutte has said that Russia does not have a veto on whether Western powers can deploy troops to Ukraine as part of security guarantees if a truce is reached. Rutte's remarks come after Russia's foreign ministry rejected the idea of any military presence in Ukraine, calling it unacceptable. Maria Zakharova, spokeswoman for the Kremlin, specifically criticized European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's comments about sending European troops to Ukraine. Rutte has emphasized that it would be Ukraine's decision to seek security forces for a peace agreement, asserting that no other nation could make that choice for them. Let's listen in to what the NATO chief had to say on the issue.
But why are we interested in what Russia thinks about troops in Ukraine? It's a sovereign country. It's not for them to decide. I'm really amazed. I'm not criticizing you, but I hear this question, of course, more often. So thank you for asking the question. But I'm really amazed. Russia has nothing to do with this.
Meanwhile, leaders from the coalition of the willing, including those from France and Britain, have gathered in Paris to finalise their contributions to Ukraine's security guarantees. According to reports, the plans are expected to include increased military training for Ukraine and the potential deployment of troops, although the specifics remain confidential. We're now joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He is a fellow at the Hudson Institute and he joins us live from Tokyo in Japan. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us here on the programme. First, let's start with the NATO Secretary General's statements saying that Ukraine is a sovereign nation and that Russia does not have any say over whether foreign boots are on the ground. Your thoughts on that statement, and if this rhetoric does continue, do you see the Ukrainian war coming to an end and Russia possibly agreeing to foreign troop deployment in Ukraine with a ceasement of hostilities?
View from this situation, what is Russia's intention is, firstly, they want to continue the war. If they cannot continue the war, after ceasefire, they want to restart the war. So because war means that they can get the chance to expand territories. So that's why the view from this situation, if the foreign troops permanently located in the eastern Ukraine and check the Russia's move, and if the Russia start to invade again, in this case, if they attack, they need to attack these foreign troops in Ukraine. It will be the war against NATO clearly, and in this case, Russia cannot win. That kind of situation Russia want to avoid. So that's why the view from the NATO, this is not ceasefire. This is just temporary taking the rest or something. So, but the war is continuing, even if they say that this is ceasefire. So it is very difficult to agree the view from this situation because one side want to continue, another side do not want to continue. So that this means if without agreement, both sides want to stop the war. Without this, the war will not stop.
Yes, and Dr. Nagao, obviously we have to talk about that meeting of all the European leaders today occurring in Paris. Confidential results about security guarantees, their promises to Kyiv. What do you think is going on behind those closed doors? Obviously, boots on the ground have proved controversial for some countries. However, some of the staunch supporters, like the French, like the British, have said that it is a real possibility. What do you think is going on behind those doors, Dr. Nagao?
For Europe, what is interest? Indeed, the important thing is, of course, how to maintain the Ukraine's territory or how to stop the Russia's invasion. That is matter. But indeed, real concern is not the Russia. Real concern is the United States, I think, because the U.S. want to relocate their resources to the Indo-Pacific instead of Europe. So that's why the U.S. is leaving from Europe. So view from the Europe want to make the United States to stay in Europe. So that's why how to maintain the United States involvement in Europe is matter, I think. And that is indeed originally when they established the NATO, maintaining the U.S. presence is the purpose, one of the purpose to establish NATO. So that's why this is, they are remembering the original purpose of NATO. And now how to do that, they are talking, I think. Because without the United States maintaining peace and deter Russia, both of these situations will not work. U.S., they need the United States.
Yes, Dr. Nagao, thank you very much. You are staying with us to discuss further updates from the European continent. Now, a tragic incident coming from Iberia. The investigations are underway after at least 17 people were killed when a funicular cable railway derailed and hit a building in Lisbon. According to reports, authorities have not identified the victims or disclosed their nationalities, but they have reported that some foreign nationals were among the dead. The Gloria Line, which opened in 1885, transports around 3 million people annually, according to the town hall. Its two cars, each capable of carrying around 40 people, are attached to opposite ends of a haulage cable with traction provided by electric motors on the two cars. The car at the bottom of the line was apparently undamaged, but videos from bystanders aired by CNN Portugal have shown it jolting violently when the other one derailed, as well as several passengers jumping out of its windows and people shouting. Portugal's government has declared it a national day of mourning. Let's take a look at some of the residents and tourists and what they had to say.
Eu faço essa caminhada todo dia. Hoje a Avenida da Liberdade não é mais a mesma. Está decretado luto nacional. É muito triste. As pessoas falam que é negligência, mas não é negligência. Eles têm um controle muito grande. Eu acho que foi um acidente, como que acontece de avião, acontece de carro, acontece tudo. Isso não é negligência, porque eles cuidam muito bem da manutenção. Eu vivo aqui há 20 e tal anos, eu vejo sempre a manutenção deles. Não foi... É um acidente. Foi um acidente.
What I've heard, it was coming down the hill. Something was wrong with the cable. It lost control, didn't have any braking ability. When it came around the corner, it crashed into the building. But I do believe the people at the bottom are very lucky, because I have seen videos online of them escaping on the bottom cabin. So it didn't. The other one didn't hit the one at the bottom, which was actually very lucky in the end. But yeah, I think that's what happened.
Já não beneficia de certeza, quer dizer, ninguém ganha com isto, não é? Nem o turismo, nem nada, mas são acidentes que eventualmente poderiam ser evitados, mas a gente não sabe até que ponto poderiam ser evitados. Tem que ser descoberto, não é?
We are once again joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao to discuss this further. Dr. Nagao, what more can you tell us about this?
Indeed, when the accident happen related to the infrastructure, indeed maintenance is a matter always. But in this case, currently, investigator explained all maintenance protocol has operating under schedule. So internal maintenance carried out last year, and regular monthly and weekly check had been done. So why it has happened is still mystery. But at the same time, if the maintenance is not a matter, that this could be the human error, but it rely on the investigation, because if what they investigate is right, there's a few possibility that accident has happened, but accident has really happened. This means that there is a reason, of course. So that's why the investigator will find the reason soon, I think.
Dr. Nagao, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Pleasure to talk to you as always. We now move over to West Asia, where a new study from Israeli and international researchers challenges claims that Israel has committed a genocide in Gaza since Hamas's October the 7th, 2023 attacks. The report, published by the Begin Sadat Center at the Bar Ilan University, argues that accusations of starvation, indiscriminate bombing and systemic civilian killings are based on faulty data and Hamas-influenced sources. It notes that before the war, Gaza averaged under 300 supply trucks a day, which is far fewer than the 500 called necessary by UN officials, according to the report. During the conflict, Israel regularly sent more than 100 trucks daily, reaching 600 during the ceasefire. This is what the report claims. The study claims that Hamas diverted aid, used civilians as human shields, and distorted casualty figures. It also says that safe zones remained relatively protected even as civilian deaths occurred. The authors conclude that genocide requires intent to destroy a people, something they say is absent in Israel's campaign, which they frame as a response to Hamas tactics. We're now joined by Dan Perry, who is a world affairs analyst, and he joins us live from Tel Aviv in Israel. Dan, thank you very much for joining us. This report obviously comes soon after the world-leading experts, the Association of Genocide Scholars, released their statement saying that Israel is committing genocide in the Gaza Strip. What are your thoughts on both of these reports that have come out, and how would you compare them and the credibility of both?
Boy, that is very complex. To begin with, a discussion about genocide is a little unbecoming to all sides, because if you deny it's genocide, it looks like you're also denying there is great suffering in the Gaza Strip, which I think is indisputable, and yet that's how it's taken. On the other hand, people who claim it's genocide, I don't believe are sticking to the actual legal definition of genocide. My guess is they don't know it, and there is a definition by the United Nations itself from the 1947 Genocide Convention. And that definition requires genocide to be the intent to destroy a group of people in whole or in part. It's completely in contravention to what people think. People think genocide is a lot of killing. In fact, it can be no killing at all if there's the intent. And there can be a huge amount of killing without the intent to destroy a people. That is at the basis of the argument, and I know it sounds like a quibble, but it's a little bit important to people who are being accused of genocide. The Bacon Sadat Center report, as far as I can tell, is an argumentation. It's not really a study. They're saying that the details coming out of Gaza are unverifiable. That's true. It's partly true because Israel does not allow foreign correspondents in. They're saying that all the institutions in Gaza that provide details are compromised because they're infiltrated by Hamas, or at the very least they're terrified by Hamas. The Hamas health ministry, the Gaza health ministry, is run by Hamas. If you think Hamas is incapable of lying to journalists or to the UN, that would be very, very naive indeed. They are diabolical terrorists, and they are carrying out a war of narratives. So it is a tremendous mess. The basic argument from the side of defenders of Israel, or at least sticklers to the definition of genocide, is that Israel says all along, and it's credibly it says, that if Hamas returned its hostages and surrendered and disarmed and handed over control of the Gaza Strip, the war would stop. And I believe the war really would stop. You can argue about whether those conditions are realistic, whether they're desirable. I think they certainly are. For the Gazan people, more than anyone desires that Hamas should let them be. But if it's true that the war ends, if Hamas gives up, then there is no genocide. Because if Israel intended to destroy the Palestinians, then, well, I mean, it would be impossible to stop it without a defeat of Israel. As for the group of so-called scholars, I fear that has fused together tragedy and farce, because that group has been revealed to be largely a fiction, which anyone can join. I was on an Israeli channel yesterday where a producer joined it within minutes by paying $30. Only a quarter of the people in the group voted. 3/4 refused to vote. There was no debate in it. And basically, it's an affirmation by people, most of whom are not scholars. So that's a fiction. And as for the Bacon Sadat Center, it's not really a study. You're left with the argument that I presented before about whether or not it's genocide. What is indisputable is there is tremendous suffering in Gaza. And one of the problems is that the people in Gaza cannot leave the territory the way Ukrainians could flee. Leave it to return when the war is over, because Israel won't let them in, and Egypt won't let them in.
I just want to provide some background context to some of Dan's comments there. The study that we are talking about is the study that came out 3 days ago out of the IAGS, which is the world's largest professional association of genocide scholars, and includes a number of Holocaust experts. Out of its 500 members, 28% took part in the vote, and 86% of those who voted supported this resolution, just to give you some context there. How credible, Dan, do those inside Israel find reports like this about Hamas looting aid to be credible and true? Obviously, disinformation and is extremely vast has been during this conflict. Obviously, that doesn't help the fact that Israel does not let international journalists into the Gaza Strip. How does one go about navigating this war for the correct information, Dan?
It's extremely difficult. You have to simply be a little bit intelligent about understanding what is the likelihood that a thing is happening, what is the likelihood that your source is it allowed media to go in freely, they'd be killed, many of them, because the area is unbelievably dangerous, then Israel itself would be blamed. That's not really a good argument after 2 years almost. Basically, the war in Gaza is such a mess, engineered by Hamas, that tried to drag Israel into this truly satanic trap with its own people, the Gazans, basically in the path of the gunfire, and held there, in some cases by Hamas. You asked me if when Israel claims things about Hamas, or when outsiders claim things about Hamas that seem so evil as to be incredible, for example, that they prevent people from leaving areas that Israel has warned it's about to attack, or they prevent people from getting to the areas of aid distribution because they want to control the aid distribution, or when they purposely embed in civilian neighborhoods, firing rockets from those neighborhoods to draw fire that will kill civilians because they think it's good PR for Palestinians to die because Israel gets blamed by people abroad who don't see the context. All those things are possible, and I think some of those things are provably true.
Yes.
The idea that it embeds in mosques and hospitals and schools is simply incontrovertible. Whether right now Hamas is looting the aid, I cannot prove, but there have been videos that showed it, and knowing what I know of Hamas, it's extremely, overwhelmingly likely.
Dan Perry, thank you very much for your time and for joining us here and for your insight on NewsX World. It's a pleasure having you. We now move over once again, where China has slammed the European Union's top diplomat for calling its show of unity with Russia, Iran and North Korea an autocratic alliance. Speaking in Brussels on Wednesday, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has warned that the parade in Beijing, featuring leaders of all 4 countries, was a direct challenge to the rules-based international order. China hit back a day later, with Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiachun stating the following.
欧盟有关官员的言论充满了意识形态偏见，缺乏基本历史常识，公然鼓噪对立对抗，既是对二战历史的不尊重，也损害欧方自身利益，十分错误，极不负责。中方对此坚决反对，强烈谴责。
We stay in the Indo-Pacific for our next story, where India and Singapore have unveiled a roadmap to expand strategic partnerships as Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Lawrence Wong stress strengthening ties amid global turbulence. Modi and Wong held extensive talks in New Delhi, covering all aspects of bilateral ties. According to reports, India-Singapore relations go far beyond diplomacy. That Modi said that both sides decided that cooperation between the 2 countries in areas of artificial intelligence, quantum and other digital technologies will be enhanced. Let's listen in to what Wong and Modi had to say.
Singapore will continue to support India's skills development journey. We are honored to accept India's invitation to be a global partner for the National Center of Excellence in Chennai, which will focus on advanced manufacturing. We will also collaborate with India to set up state-level skills centers to meet industry needs in sectors like aviation, maintenance, repair and overhaul, and semiconductors. Second, we will expand cooperation in manufacturing and industrial development. Singapore companies are keen to develop sustainable industrial parks in India to support India's manufacturing ambitions. At the same time, we will deepen collaboration in semiconductors, not just in skills training, but also in R&D, supply chains, and logistics. And these efforts will generate new growth opportunities for both our countries. Third, we will strengthen connectivity across the air, sea, and digital domains. This morning, we exchanged an MOU on cooperation in training, research, and development in civil aviation. This will support the growth of our aviation sectors, facilitate trade and tourism, and create more commercial opportunities. On the maritime side, we just launched Phase 2 of PSA's Bharat Mumbai Container Terminal in Navi Mumbai, which will become India's largest standalone container terminal. And beyond physical links, we are also enhancing digital connectivity between our financial systems. Our central banks have exchanged an MOU on digital asset innovation, and we are discussing ways to further enhance cross-border data flows and capital market linkages, including through regulatory sandboxes that would allow our
relations go far beyond diplomacy. This is a partnership with purpose, rooted in shared values, guided by mutual interests and driven by a common vision for peace, progress and prosperity. हमारी इस भागीदारी में आपकी निजी प्रतिबद्धता के लिए मैं आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। Thank you.
We're now joined by Major General Sudhakar Ji. He is a senior geopolitical and strategic defence expert, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us, Major General, here on the programme. What is your reaction to this, the growing ties between Singapore and India, and what do you think are going to be the new importance of them in the developing world?
Well, Thomas, my take on the whole issue is that Singapore is to be seen as a springboard for Indian business, given the fact that India has approximately 55% of its total export passing through Malacca Strait through the South China Sea towards Asia Pacific. Second, Singapore is the hub of containers. India is extremely deficient of containers. We are dependent on Singapore, not only for containers, but for all the services required to make our trade effective and viable. And last but not the least, I personally feel that given the bilateral trade between India and Singapore standing at 34.29 billion in 2024-25, it has huge potential for future growth. And the FDI, which stands at 174.89 billion from April 2000 to March 2025, it has got a great opening to flow in, or the flow of wealth coming into India in form of FDI is enormous. And as an extension of this, I would say that the trade with ASEAN is also, the free trade agreement is yet to be finalized, is yet to be signed. And once that happens, I'm very confident that the trade imbalance, which is deficit against India, is going to look up and improve.
Yes, Major General, do stay with us here on the programme as we discuss further updates. We now move back over to Europe, where Russia has strongly rejected claims that it attempted to jam the GPS system of a plane carrying European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, called the allegations preposterous and 100% false. Zakharova has also said that Moscow will continue to combat the West's web of lies. That is a quote aimed at discrediting Russia on the world stage. She has suggested that the claims were intended to distract the public from the actual events. Amid these claims, von der Leyen and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk arrived at the Polish-Belarusian border on Sunday, where they discussed defence and security, among other issues, highlighting continued EU focus on regional stability. We're now once again joined by Major General Sudhakar Ji. Major General, what are your thoughts on this story? The credibility of both sides, strong words from both sides, ideologically calling the West's allegations preposterous and calling the West's narrative a web of lies. Could you analyse quickly for us the two stances there when it comes to information in the eastern and western peninsulas?
Absolutely, Thomas. I personally, since I'm back from Europe and other countries in the West, about a month and a half back, my personal take on the whole issue is that the rumor is rife regarding a false flag operation against Russia in almost everywhere in Europe. Whether Russia does it or not, but the narrative which is building up in Europe is highly detrimental to the global peace. And it suggests that no matter how intense and how sincere the attempt to bring about a closure to the ongoing conflict may be from Donald Trump's side, the Europe individually and collectively, somehow they do not intend to ensure ceasefire, and instead they are all prepared for a false flag operation to blame Russia so that they have a casus belli to actually trigger some kind of an offensive if push comes to shove, if the need arises. Having said that, my only suggestion to the entire gamut of activities is that let's give peace a chance. Enough of bloodshed has taken place. Let this mindless conflict come to an end. Let there be some kind of understanding despite all contradictory inputs which are emerging. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Major General, for taking the time and giving us that insight here on the programme. Well, this hour, that is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more updates from around the world. Thank you.